Hello everyone, my name is Christian. Welcome back to Tekpon. Today our guest is Madhukar, the CMO at SingleStore. Hello.
Hi, Christian. Nice to meet you.
Nice to have you on the podcast. At first, please tell us what your company does.
Yeah, SingleStore is a database that helps customers and companies do transactions, analysis of data, and now with AI, contextualizing of data in real time. So think of it, the company was earlier called MemSQL, and initially it started off as an in-memory database. So it was extremely fast and still is. But over a period of time, our engineers built out a patented technology that allowed us to store data both in a tabular form as well as columnar data, which allows you to do incredibly fast ingestion of data, do transactions, but also do, several orders of magnitude faster analytics as well. And it also has vectors, so you can also use it to build generative AI applications as well.
Okay, makes total sense. And what is the biggest problem that you solve for companies?
Yeah, I think the biggest use case and the problem for any company would be if you have a lot of data that is being generated at an incredibly fast rate, and all this data is in very different kinds of variety. It could be JSON, it could be time series, it could be SQL, and you want to reason and contextualize with it in like split seconds. So for example, let's say you are DoorDash or some sort of a ride share.
Yes.
And you want to use that data in real time to give promotion. So it could be a marketing or analytics. Or you're a security company and you're looking at all the incidents that are happening and you want to do something very quickly. Or you're a credit card company and you want to do fraud detection and stuff. So a lot of those real-time use cases is where SingleStore fits in very sweetly.
That's amazing. And what do you say are the most loved features of the product?
I think the fact that you can do real-time analytics and the ability to mix and match data in split seconds across petabytes of data is just phenomenal. So we have customers who typically do 6 or 7 petabytes of data in a day, and they process it and they generate their own graphs out of it. So those kind of use cases. So I think the fact that you can do different kinds of thing with the data in split seconds is what really makes us different.
Right. And do you have a favorite customer success story that you can share with the audience?
Yeah,
without
absolutely.
naming any names, if that's a problem.
No, we can name the name to the customer is LiveRamp. LiveRamp is one of our customers, and they have I believe the world's largest identity graph. And they used to use analytics database where they would, run batch analytics, and it used to take them 22 hours to do it.
Wow.
And now once they move to SingleStore, they are able to do that in 18 seconds. So from 22 hours to 18 seconds, it's a phenomenal increase.
Right.
And now they're also looking to do a bunch of other use cases too, specifically generative AI. The other customer I could say is, without naming them, they are in the security business. So imagine if you have something like Amber Alert kind of a situation where you might have some data that is the make of the car, the color of the car, the license plate, but you might also have a picture of the incident. And that's coming in streaming from a bunch of different cameras across the city. So to be able to mix and match all of data in a few milliseconds and then be able to provide that valuable information to save lives and, to help lives positively, that's one of the other big customers that we work with.
Thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. I'd love to know more about the pricing and how do you base your pricing?
Yeah, so one of the things that we do with our database is you have what we call as bottomless storage. So all the data that you can store, you can actually store it in a very cheap and efficient way or cost efficient way in object storage. But when you're running queries on it, that's when you need compute. So you pay for the compute that you are using in order to store the data, in order to do transaction analysis, contextualization with the data. And that's how the pricing works. The pricing is by usage. So if you're using your what we call as workspace, for running very large queries, you might need a very large virtual machine or you need a very small. So depending on your use case, and you can shut it down or you can also suspend it when you don't use it. And the storage part is very cost efficient.
Makes total sense. And how competitive is your space? Is this a competitive market?
It is. Like if you look at all the other databases, and we work very closely with other databases too, but there are other databases. So there are transactional databases where you would see they do either just JSON or they only do things like, row-based SQL. And of course, there are open sources. And then there are analytics databases. And these analytics databases are very data warehouse or data lake kind of use cases.
Yeah.
This is a combination of both. So typically customers come to us when they want to take a transactional data and make that faster, or they want to take an analytics database and make that faster. So we both augment it, as well as at times when it makes sense to just put it in one single database, we have some use cases there too.
Oh, wow. Okay. Nice hearing that. And can you share with us the founding story? Are you familiar with it?
Yeah, so we have been around for about 10 years and we are close to about $100 million in revenue. And we obviously been around for a decade. So when it was started by 3 engineers, 3 different founders.
Okay.
And it started off as an in-memory database. And at that time, I think it was Memcache as well as Redis. And primarily in-memory at that time was a lot about, let's just use it for sessions or caching. And then there was somebody who mentioned that, hey, you cannot really do both transaction and analytics in the same architecture. So we created this patented technology, which internally the developers were calling as a single store, where you could store both the transactional data as well as the analytics data.
Yeah.
So when we applied for the patent for it, then we had this new architecture where your data starts from in memory, then it goes into your local disks, which could be SSDs or NVMEs, and then eventually it moves into object storage. And in that entire process, you can define like whether it should be a columnar stage, columnar storage, or it could be, row-based that turns into columnar storage by usage. So that's how we evolved. And then over a period of time, we have had a very large customers. So about 60% of our customers are Fortune 100 companies. And that has been the evolution. But in 2017, we added this notion called vectors. Mm-hmm. And that's when Google had written the first transformer paper. And a lot of customers started to use us in production for doing semantic search against images. And when OpenAI released their ChatGPT last November, exactly 12 months ago, then it suddenly started to pick up a new use case called retrieval augmented generation, or RAG, where you take your data, you curate and contextualize it, and then you give it to the large language model. So there's where a lot of these use cases have certainly started to now move towards for us as well.
Wow. What an opportunity. So you're prepared before that, but that's amazing.
When
exactly did you join the company?
I joined this year in January, and prior to this, I started off as a developer, and I started off as a SQL developer and then a Java developer. Then eventually I got into product management and then finally into product marketing and then running the marketing team.
And how big is the marketing team right now?
We have close to about 30-ish people across the globe.
And how about the overall team at SingleStore?
The overall company, we are a little around 400 employees, and also across the globe. We have offices in San Francisco, Sunnyvale, where I am, and then we have offices in Portugal, we have offices in India, and of course, a lot of folks are also remote.
Nice. And what are your main responsibilities as the CMO? What does your day-to-day look? Let's say.
Yeah, I say there are 3 things that always is on the top of the mind as a person responsible for marketing. One is the growth and product-led growth. Mm-hmm. The second is pipeline for your product-led support. And the third one is brand awareness. So what we define as product-led growth is the free version or the trial version of our database. And that
Yes.
has, again, we have been very, very lucky. It's grown by 5x in just the last 5 or 6 months. In addition, we also work with the sales team. So a lot of the very large enterprise customers, they come in and they, have a proof of concept and then eventually become customers. So that's the other piece. There's a lot of campaigns and other coordination of work going on. And then finally, of course, branding. So these branding would be social media, or if you're doing anything related to events
Yes.
and all of that. So it's a combination of all the three goals, so to speak.
And out of them three, which one is the most successful today for getting new customers?
I think they're all interconnected. I
Okay.
would say
So without brand
The
awareness,
branding.
you cannot do PLG.
yeah, the brand awareness, I think, takes a little bit longer time, but once it works, then
Yeah.
you get a lot more inbound. And then the second is PLG, that has been very, very successful for us because, we have seen, like I said, a phenomenal increase. I had posted it on LinkedIn as well. And then for product-led sales, which is pipeline of enterprise customers, that's picking up. They're
Yeah.
all interconnected, but the PLG is way ahead of the other two.
And the company also raised funding.
Yes, the company had raised funding, I believe, a year or so ago. That was the last round of funding.
What?
And I think we have a total of about, I might be mistaken, somewhere around
It's okay.
$300 million that we have raised in the last 4 years or so.
And the latest funding round was probably Series C or D.
No, much, much later than that.
Ah, okay.
And since I don't have the information in front of me, I'd rather not
Yeah, it's
say
okay.
what it was, but people
Of
can look
course.
it up on the website.
Of course. It's not your job, but I was curious about that. And I love to know the future vision for the company, and for your from your perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. I think our vision is to help companies contextualize and transact and analyze data in what we call as now as in split seconds or in milliseconds. So if you look at where the world is headed, especially with AI, there's
Yes.
so much of data coming in from different places, and the data is in different formats.
Yes.
And if your AI is not aware of it, then it's not accurate. So if you're doing things like, even autonomous driving, or if you're doing any kind of use cases, you constantly want the AI to be aware of that data, because even if it's a few minutes old, especially in security incidents, then it's either
Fatal.
incorrect or out
Yeah.
of date. Yeah. So in that, our vision is to take company or help companies take all their data that they have in any different format and then be able to transact, analyze, and contextualize that for modern applications in a few seconds or few milliseconds.
That is amazing. Wow. I'm so happy for you. And on the other side, let's say on the negative side, I'd love to know your biggest challenge since joining the company.
The biggest challenge, I think, I would say this whole thing about working remotely and sometimes in person, and that transition has been a little bit, I wouldn't say challenging, but unique in the sense initially everything was remote and then things started to open up.
Yes.
And then some people started to come in offices. And now there are others who are in offices and others who are always remote. So we've kind of gone back to where it was earlier, except that it's different.
Yes.
And so figuring out the best way to collaborate with everybody in the same time zones and, be able to include everybody in the conversations, I would say it's still evolving.
And I'd love to know your best piece of advice for a developer looking to get into marketing. I know it's a hard journey, but more and more people are going that way, and you are an example here.
Yeah, I would say the best example is or the best, I don't know if it's an advice, but as Sam Altman says, he said, I never follow any advice, so I prefer not to give an advice. But, if I were to redo my own journey, I would say is writing is a big part of any creativity, whether you are writing code or whether you're writing articles. So think visually about how to create stories and how to put structure around the overall story. And then when you bring it to life, whether it's through code or through words or even through videos, the journey is kind of similar. You're telling a story, and the end product is your fingerprints. So
Yes.
it basically reflects what's in your mind. So it's important to be curious. It's important to have clarity of thought, and it's important to have structure to your overall thinking as well.
But why did you decide to take this journey? What motivated you to change your job so dramatically, let's say?
Yeah, I think it was, I would say, definitely curiosity. I started off actually writing. I've been writing ever since I was in school, and I just love the idea of starting with a blank page and then eventually ending up with creating something that didn't exist. And that went into websites when, the websites and HTML and all of that came about in the early 2000s or late 1990s.
Yes.
Then it became about the apps, and then it became about, now artificial intelligence, which allows you to also write code. So if I look back, I think there's a common thread, and that common thread is storytelling, which emerges from your own imagination. And whether that is code or whether that's what you call marketing, it's all defined by humans, but at the end of the day, it's the same thing in my mind.
I like that perspective. And I have a question that I ask everybody on the show. What's your favorite SaaS product that you use, but apart from SingleStore?
I was going to say SingleStore, but I would say my favorite SaaS product would be Figma. I really love Figma.
Nice. And is there anything else that you want to share today on the podcast? Any last piece of advice or something that you want to mention before we close it off?
Yeah, I think it's an incredibly exciting time to be a developer or even a growth engineer, because what I've seen, there are a lot of engineers who are afraid of telling the story from a marketer's perspective. And there are a lot of marketers who are afraid to get their hands dirty with the code.
Yes.
And I think it's an incredible time to actually do both, because with the likes of large language models, you can write code or you can do very quick integration. So if you're bold enough and you have the creativity to go think of something that would help the entire organization, you can actually do it with low code or no code, and then combine it with your creativity of the visuals and the storytelling. And this becomes a perfect time to be a growth engineer or a growth marketer.
Yeah, I like that you say that way, and most people probably see it as something fearful, or I might lose my job or something, but we need to see problems as opportunities to grow.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining the podcast. You did fantastic, and I'm grateful for all your advice.
Absolutely, and really grateful for being on this show. So thank you for inviting me. Nice to talk to you, Christian.
Thank you so much.